my name is Josh Jarrett, and I will be sharing a reflection for you today. We as millennials are quite familiar with the idea of self-discovery in times of crisis. We have had crisis after crisis at critical points in our own development. 9/11 changed what we thought the world was like while at a very young age. I was coming into my teens and discovering my own path, my own identity, and the world as we knew it flipped. Katrina struck us in the South to show us that a disaster isn't just something that created by humanity, but by nature itself. Homes of friends and family were ripped apart. Family were struck by sudden loss. They had to find a new way for themselves forward. We experienced a massive recession at the start of our adulthood, many of us being held back for years. I had just started my college. My education funding disappeared, so I had to choose between focusing on education and making sure my 60-hour work week was still intact so I could survive. We have seen wars start and end and start again. We saw the lifting of hope in the election of a historic president and then the crushing of the idea of a moral presidency. Then 2020 happened. We are seeing this convergence of a global pandemic, challenging what we already knew was a broken healthcare system. We have seen a reckoning of white supremacy and an acknowledgement of the systematic racism within our institutions. But people rose up. People are reaching out to one another to help the collective we. Now an entire generation is seeing the destruction of a world that we clung to since childhood, one that taught us the strength to stand for what is just, but being destroyed by the unveiling of a transphobic beliefs of an author that instilled the very notion of social justice and acceptance into an entire generation. This very world saved me from the darkness of a world of self-hate that pressed in on me from all sides while growing up in a not so peer-friendly part of the country. But we as young people are no stranger to finding ways to reimagine the world that we live in. But now we have to turn inward and start the process of our own self-discovery, not out of curiosity or self-care, but because it's something we have been trained to do. We sit with ourselves and dive deeper to discover how white supremacy has been ingrained within us. We sit and think of the ideas of a generational icon and how she's infused her transphobia into her stories and how we can reshape and reclaim that very story. We think about ways that we can shift the American idea of individualism into a pursuit of collectivism to create a new vision for our society. We look to the younger generation and how we can end this cycle of denigrating the generation after us and instead become their cheerleaders and bolster them up. Self-discovery in times of crises is often difficult and painful, but self-discovery in times of crises are a means of survival. But we have changed the paradigm before. We can do it again, and we have the tools to find ourselves again. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Anna, and I'm going to do the second reflection today. During this quarantine, I have been taking a course about emotions that have allowed me to reflect on my identity. Being quarantined at home has taught me that happiness is achieved in the way that you think about life. We all have various strengths and weaknesses in our personality, such as being flexible, the ability to be angry, honesty, mindfulness, and adaptability. The course ascribes these personality traits to one of the natural elements, such as water, earth, fire, and air. Coincidentally, I've also been indulging in the series called Avatar: The Last Airbender. Avatar: The Last Airbender is a show that has 4 nations that specializes in one of the 4 elements. The Avatar is the only person that can master all of these elements. The Avatar's destiny is to bring peace to the world so that all of the 4 nations can live together in harmony. Each of these elements has different qualities that describes different parts of a personality. Someone who is like water is flexible, adaptable to their environments, and they're able to understand what others are feeling. Someone who is like earth is grounded, consistent, responsible, and stable. Someone who is like fire is blunt, honest, not afraid to speak their mind, and might have a hard time controlling their temper. Lastly, someone who is like air is someone who seeks adventure and stimulation. The two elements that I relate to the most are air and fire. I guess you can say that I am like a nuclear bomb. When I believe in something, I tend to speak my mind in a rather straight to the point and blunt manner. I also tend to space out a lot because I get bored easily and my mind starts ruminating about things I find more stimulating. That means that elements that I least relate to are water and earth. So during this quarantine, I have made it my mission to be like the Avatar, a master of all the elements in order to be more balanced. I want to be more like Earth because I want to be reliable, consistent, and present in every aspect of my life. And I would like to be like water because I want the ability to empathize and adapt to different situations. An image that I like to think about often is a waterfall because I believe it is a way to remind myself to be more like earth and water. One of the ways that I have been able to calm my fire is by tapping into my water. Sometimes I find myself fixated on an event that happened in the past that caused some pain, which is part of the fire inside of me. But then I pause and I imagine that my thoughts are on leaves in a stream just floating away as I let go of these thoughts and start being in the present. Being in the present is another quality of earth that I want to incorporate in my life. I've been doing this by meditating and doing yoga because I realized that these practices have enabled me to connect to my inner earth and water. Quarantine has given me the opportunity to think more about my identity and what is important in life and how to make my life happier. It has taught me that nothing in life is forever, and in order to find happiness, we need to find it within ourselves, internally rather than externally. Being in quarantine has taken away all of my external factors that brought joy or meaning to my life, such as going to work every day, going out dancing, going to the gym, going to the bar to hang out with friends. It has taught me that in order to be happy, we need a strong foundation on what is important in our lives. During this time, I have been focusing on balancing my life by figuring out my identity and ways to improve it so that I can be the avatar and be the master of all the elements in order to bring more balance and peace into my life. Thank you for allowing me to share this with you.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, everyone, and good morning. My name's Jason Sandler. I'm going to be sharing our third and final reflection this morning. As we grow, we young adults are all walking a path between the world of the possible and the world of what actually is. It's a rough journey sometimes. The past few months certainly haven't made it any easier for us. For me, the COVID-19 pandemic is just one more way in which the realities of illness and human suffering have been shaping my own identity as a young adult. I was 14 and starting my freshman year of high school in Boston when my dad was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. 3.5 years later, he died. In between, my family endured a lot of frightening and difficult times as my dad received his treatments, underwent surgeries, and waited for the results of his CAT scans. Somehow, in the midst of all of this, I did find some optimism. I witnessed the impact that healthcare providers could have on extending life against the odds while helping people feel better and providing them with hope, even in the face of very hard and painful truths. I wanted to pay it forward. So began my journey to becoming a doctor. Don't get me wrong, I'm very grateful now for the privilege of being able to practice medicine. But let's face it, as an 18-year-old graduating from high school, I really had no idea what I was getting myself into. Over the next decade, college would become medical school and then medical residency. I graduated from long hours at the computer studying into endless day and night shifts working on the wards of my hospital in the Bronx. It was as if the world was becoming a big, long, dark tunnel, closing in on me more and more with each passing month. And all the while, as I struggled to stay afloat in a sea of academic competition amidst 80-hour work weeks, the harsh truths of the real world were eating away at my soul. I didn't even realize it until it was almost too late. I watched my colleagues striving to win prestigious training positions, better lifestyles, more lucrative salaries. And I began to feel like we were all just cogs in a well-oiled machine, easily replaceable the minute we broke down or stopped performing to the owner's specifications. Just like the Queen of Hearts in Alice in Wonderland, here we all were, running as fast as we could just for the privilege of staying in one place. Meanwhile, I watched countless sick hospital patients, most of whom were of low income and people of color, who were being put through a revolving door of apathy and limited resources while they contended with the unsolved underlying compound hardships of their lives. Many were tied down by the ongoing oppression of a racist capitalist system that leaves people behind once all of their useful value has been extracted from them. My medical care could do little, if anything, to change that. Now, here I am, at age 30, starting the second year of my oncology fellowship, treating cancer patients in Brooklyn. Though my workplace has changed, the truths of our world have not. The COVID-19 pandemic, along with other recent events, has only cast the inequities of our city, our country, and our world into even sharper relief for everyone to see. And all the while, no matter how loudly we young people may keep demonstrating and shouting for reform through our masks, the truth of the matter is that in so many ways, we young people are still stuck running in place as fast as we can, with our hands tied behind our backs. The strong still do what they can. The weak still suffer what they must. Maybe I'm just supposed to accept that this is the way the world is. But it hurts. And I can't help but wonder, does it really have to be this way? Could there be a world where every patient and every healthcare worker actually has inherent worth and dignity? What would it take for us to get there? And in the meantime, how do we keep living in this world? How do we continue onward without falling into cynicism or anger or apathy? How do we hold on to meaning in the midst of injustice? What, if anything, can we actually do to make a difference? I'm still a young person. I'm still asking myself these questions and many more. I don't have answers for most of them, but at least I'm still asking. And I've learned that I'm not alone in asking them. And maybe, just maybe, our questions are building the groundwork for a way forward. May it be so, and amen.